Alright, we're back. I don't remember what part we're on, but I've eaten again. I remain homeless, for those of you who are clicking into this one for the first time. I don't know why you would start so deep, but if you know me, you know I'm homeless. If you know me well enough to know that the shaggy part of my name means that I'm going to take forever to talk about what I have to talk about, and I may never get around to it because this is a conversation between what I thought was peers, but it turns out you just don't have anything to say. It's fine. So I can fill the silence. And I'm a Philalethean, which means a lover of truth. And now we're going to continue with the Gospel of John. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. The light is truth. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He, that is, John, was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. That's important, because what that's saying is that John had already attempted this before. John the Baptist is who this is talking about, had already attempted the going back in time and rewriting history with his murder. Which means we really need to talk about the myth of John the Baptist. Because John the Baptist and belief that John the Baptist had already done a lesser version of what Jesus did is why the Knights Templar were hunted down and murdered. It's why the Cathars were hunted down and murdered. It's why the Gnostics were hunted down and murdered. Understanding the rite of baptism properly, where it comes from, and that it's not Jesus. It's a different kind of wizard who's important in the construction of the kingdom. Understanding that is a crime for which people have and continue to be persecuted and murdered. Knowing this will get me killed. Churches will abandon me and allow me to die if they know what I believe. Because one of the conditions of going to this Life Kitchen, which is a Christian organization, or going to any of these churches that hand out food and shelter, is a conversion event to their idiomatic interpretation of the text. And so if I disagree with them, I either have to disagree with the entire denomination, I have to reform the entire denomination in precisely the way I told you that the man becomes the man. Metatext, find it. Or I have to go at my own. And so you don't understand, the closer you live to God, the further you live from community. Because as I keep telling you, God is the gap. No one lives in the gap. Who lives in the Grand Canyon? I literally chose a ravine. The true light, which gives light to everyone. This is the light of enlightenment, not of wisdom, of truth. When you've seen the light, you know the truth. This is what John Keel was talking about. When an orb of light flies over top of you, you know the truth. The supernatural is real. There are impossible things that happen. When you watch a ball of light turn into a Cessna private plane about 15 to 30 feet above your head, so close you can see the rivets in its underside, and then impossibly disappear behind a tree that can't be 3 feet wide in the boughs and isn't 8 feet tall, you know the truth. You don't know what it is, but you've just been touched by it. You've just seen it. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. We know that Jesus is the light. Sorry. We know that Jesus is the light to which he's referring. Because we're not idiots. I don't care how little I think of you. If you don't know that Jesus is the light, the way, and the truth, then you just haven't been fucking paying attention. How many opportunities have you had to hear that? Like, it's like I think it was actually in the unrecorded version of this where I was talking about it. One of my very favorite comedy bits a few years ago when I was much younger was a Jewish person talking about what if Jews had like Jews for Moses bumper stickers, like the proselytizing bumper stickers that Christians use. What Christians use? What if Jews did that? And it's very funny. And then he was like, do Christians forget the message so readily? I hate the middle of this table because it's got a raised stump. That's a bummer. So sometimes you're going to have my head cut out of the shot. It's like, do Christians forget? Like, are they driving down the highway and see a Jesus Saves and be like, oh my God, I forgot? Or are there people who just never knew, so they're driving down the road and see the bumper sticker, Jesus Saves, and they're like, who's Jesus? Why isn't there a toll-free number? I would like to be saved. Like, that's very funny to me. Do you need the reminding? It's very strange to me. Anyway, Jesus is the light of which he is talking about when John, the author John, says, the true light which gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him. Yet the world did not know him. That's Jesus. He came to his own is footnoted. Greek, to his own things. That is, to his own domain. Or to his own people. Yeah. He came to his own. That is, his own people. The Jewish people. Because in this time period, to be called Jewish, Yehudim, or whatever, the Jew, in the various languages, just meant to be a follower of the one God. It just meant to be a monotheist. And so what that means is that all of the philosophers, all of it, everyone who ever proselytized one God, or whoever ever suggested the idea of one thing, the one, the equal, all of that were understood to be Jewish. Everyone who ever did it, and the time that they were doing it, was understood to be doing that Jewish thing. The Hebrew tradition is a specific kind of that Jewish thing. The Hebrew writings are a specific expression of that Jewishness. But the Jewish, the all or the good or the one God, used to be married in a kingly or courtly dynastic cosmogony that was rejected by the Gnostics. And it's being rejected here. So Jesus is, as the light, also born of a virgin goddess, or without a virgin goddess. The cosmogony that he's describing here is the one God and then the light. The one God just springs forth the light. It isn't the light, but it kind of produces the light as a byproduct. And then the byproduct of the light existing as long as it has is that eventually it's going to get envious of all of the things that draw from it, and it's just going to manifest in human form. That's the consequence of time, is what John has been telling us. And as the consequence of all this time travel magic that I've been describing, what happened, John is telling us with this time travel narrative, is that when Jesus died on the cross, which he's saying happened, Jesus died on the cross and was resurrected. Why do I know that? Because Paul experienced the light as Saul, and when he came out of it, everything, he says that everything, even my very experience, couldn't have happened if he didn't actually die and then do these other series of magical things as a consequence. And one of the series of magical things that Jesus did, the harrowing of hell, is a time travel narrative. He's going back in time. He's going back in time. And the reason he's doing that is it is an understanding of Jesus' actual education, worldview, and way of life. And that is, Jesus corrects all of these incorrect or sinful narratives that the Greeks had access to by actually embodying them thoughtfully, mindfully, intentionally, willfully, in the way that I've been describing and demonstrating for you, willfully embodying the lives of men like Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, or Jesus, or Socrates, or Plato, or Aristotle, or Diogenes. Any of these great people that I tell you that I am embodying, it's called an exemplary execution, that I am exemplifying for you. This book is telling you that's what Jesus did. That Jesus exemplified all of these people from Achilles on, all of the greatest heroes that ever went to hell, that ever died, that ever went to the God of hosts. And we're going to get into that, I promise. That's in our metatext. This book is saying that Jesus went back and fixed all of them by giving you a way to see their righteousness so you can forgive their sins. And I can prove that because that's what the great rhetoricians and orators and lawyers and theologians of the time immediately after Jesus' life were concerned with. So things like advocacy for the devil became very popular in the the literary traditions that were happening, and most of it didn't filter down to history because most of it wasn't important. And because think about it, you're writing in Greek. The Greek's not going to make it to Europe. What the fuck do the Muslims give a fuck about whether Cleopatra was a good or a bad person? The Muslims are too fucking stupid to care about anything that doesn't directly relate to them. So that they didn't keep any of that. And they so badly distorted the Platonic and Aristotelian traditions that they're unrecognizable in Muslim hands. The alchemy tradition too. Don't get it twisted. The Europeans had to go back and fix everything that the Muslims got wrong. There is a reason that late medieval and Renaissance intelligentsia, polymaths, thought that Jabir ibn Hayyan, I believe is how it's pronounced, was a gibbering lunatic. The word gibberish, comes from Jabir ibn Hayyan. It's gibberish because he just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. But there's like 1,000 years of tradition written in his name, and they just don't know what the fuck they're talking about anything. It's gibberish because it's the work of an idiot, of an unknowing, unenlightened moron. And moron, I've explained to you what retardation actually is. It's a slowing down of the process, of the processing. It's my damn phone. It's my damn burner phone. Can't even turn on now because it's not got enough RAM to even turn on. It's so slow retarded by its own update of the fucking Amazon, or not Amazon, Google Android operating system. It can't even operate anymore. It's really impressive. And that's what I'm saying Islam is. And frankly, that's what I'm telling you your public education was at every level. Even if you got a private, I'm telling you that's what your education was at every level of everything. It was just a hammer directly to your head, slowing down your RAM. Flooding you with information you don't need, memorizations of lists that can't help you to flood your RAM. And you had too limited RAM to begin with. And who even knows about your processing speed? Because I guarantee when I was talking about calculus, 95% of the future viewer is going to go, what the fuck is he talking about? Ask questions and then I can try to explain it in another one. He came to his own people, and his own people also footnoted. People is implied in the Greek. Oh, they just added the people so that it wasn't, he came to his own, so it doesn't read like this. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. So they add the people because it's implied twice in a row. So they just did it to make it easier to read in English. That's what makes this a good translation, in my opinion. It's easy to read and understand in English. Not just in modern English, but just in English. Just the way we actually speak and read, and good syntax. In English, one of the things we don't do is delete implicit words. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, note that neither his nor name here are capitalized. I like that too. The ESV doesn't do a lot of the unnecessary capitalization conventions of the KJV. They make it too mystical. They make books that shouldn't be mystical. Now, this book is mystical, and I like that they're taking some of the mysticism out of it, because this is not a mystical collection of books. So when you read it in the Gnostic Bible, for instance, which is a great collection of the Nag Hammadi library, I've read it many times. That was my personal Bible that slept with me, that I carried everywhere with me. It's a white, big book called the Gnostic Bible, and I think that's the one that actually has a good translation of the Republic in it by Plato. And so what I'm telling you is that it was either the Nag Hammadi or the Dead Sea Scrolls community, which is the Qumran community. They were reading Republic right alongside the Old Testament, right alongside it. As they were writing out their own Apocrypha and creating their own Gospels of Jesus, they were also reading the Republic. And so if you're going to be a Christian, you have to be reading at least Republic alongside the New Testament. You have to. Because Jesus did. Frankly, Jesus did. Whether he sat and read the text or he listened to it performed in public the way I'm doing, Jesus did. And I keep trying to say that these books were written to be read in public. But to all who did receive him, that is Jesus, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So let's break that down, because I've had somebody ask me recently if I thought I knew what that meant, and they were just not into my answer. But they also couldn't argue why I was wrong, because they didn't have a good answer either. This is a mystery, but it's not a mystery. It's a mystery now because we're fucking dumb. But it wasn't a mystery to the author, and it wasn't a mystery to the author's audience. Children of God, I told you I was going to explain. Actually, let's just put this down right now, because I've got 10 minutes and it's going to take 10 minutes to explain this. I told you that we were going to explain Hermes Trismegistus. We were going to explain adulthood and childhood in spirit and in body. We're going to talk about will throughout all of this, because I don't know how you're a Christian and you don't know how will magic works. I don't know how you grew up in a post-Christian nation and don't know how will magic works. It just told you there are two wills. which means the mind-body problem was never a problem. Your mind effectively, in this context, and the context of the ancient Greek, is your will. Your will is oriented in two ways, because your mind is oriented in two ways. There are two persons, two bodies, two entities which occupy the mind. And it's described as the mind-body problem. Because what scienticians want to do is they want to say, well, it seems like the body is making a lot of your choices. Like I watched an overweight woman eat today. And we think, well, she was morbidly and grossly obese. Not a judgment, because I watch people and I try to see, well, why is she morbidly obese? Is it that she hates herself? Is it that she doesn't notice? Is it that the difficulty of ambulating when you're 400 pounds isn't a suffering to you? And so I'm curious, as a former philosopher and as a philaletheia, as a person who came to philosophy by an interest in academic psychology, not just pop psychology that you can get on any newsstand, but the academic stuff that costs money and requires engagement with, I'm trying to remember that website that's the library of academic articles that you can get free access to. Brink security guys always have the same face. Do they hire based on face recognition? I've completely forgotten what I was talking about because I saw a man with a gun, and so my body went into... I was talking about the mind-body problem. My body went into, okay, are we in immediate danger? And so the mind-body problem is this idea that your mind is you, and that your body is problematic because it makes a lot of your choices for you. And so neuroscience thinks that it's confirmed that the mind-body problem is a real thing, because what neuroscience recently found is that, and through good experimentation, good study, I believe this happened, that I believe that their study, the parameters, the blinding, all of it was good. I've read the study and I've listened to lots of academics who also think the same. So it's been peer-reviewed and a lot of people agree. The determinism aspect of it is wrong though, and I've talked about that in context of determinism, but probably in places where you'll just never find it. And so let's talk about it again, and 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 again. Like Jordan Peterson, just repeating myself until you fucking hate me, and that's fine. You know what? We're gonna do this while I'm smoking. Because I don't like being in this building with a guy with a gun. I've had a gun pulled on me in the middle of an intersection through literally no fault of my own, nothing I was doing. I was crossing the street, and a guy nearly fucking hit me, and I went, hey, great job, and he got out of his car and threatened me with a gun, pushed it up against my chest, and told me he was gonna fucking kill me, and I said, great, do it, right here, fucking end my misery, right here in front of God and fucking everybody. Fucking make my fucking day, pal. That's what I said. And you can tell I'm stressed. I'm stressed. That gun is triggered. And so I'm gonna stand here. A child of man is the second stage of life. The ancient world, we only give credit to the Hindus, and we say, oh, the Hindi were so smart. The Buddhists were so smart, largely through Alan Watts. And we're so impressed with how they have a stage of life in their religion, built right into their religion. That at certain ages you have to wear certain clothes and you're expected to do certain things, and if you don't, you're irreligious. You're a bad person. And so it was put to me in the Great Courses Lectures series, the Great Minds of the Eastern Intellectual Tradition, because they don't call it the philosophical tradition, and the Western isn't the Western philosophical tradition, it's the Western intellectual tradition, and that's better because philosophy is not Eastern or Western. Philosophy is the syncretism of the two, intentionally the syncretism of the two, because philosophy already had Herodotus. By the time philosophers started calling themselves philosophers, they already had Herodotus. They already had an explanation for why the East and West were so different. That's why Alexander was so syncretic. That's why they murdered him. The East-West divide is artificial and has always been artificial. And so insisting on it today is artificial, especially to say Eastern and Western philosophy. The East don't do philosophy. They've never called what they do philosophy. It's never even been religion. It's way of life. It's worldview. Way of life, though. The way of life is a term that used to be a part of anthropology that's just gone. They call it worldview now, but it's way of life and worldview are very different things. The way you view the world and the way you live from that view are very, very different things. I've already told you about the calculus of your decision making. The calculus of your decision making comes out of your worldview. The decision making is your way of life. You can understand that, right? The patterns of our decision making is how we live. Like our decisions are our life. That's what this book is kind of telling us. And now I'm telling you, to be a child, a son of man, is the second stage of life. And so the mind-body problem is telling you that your body, your brain, that's the last thing I was talking about, makes decisions for you about a half a second before you're aware that a decision was made. And so what's actually happening here, and John is describing it right in the first chapter, is that you have the will of the mind, the will of the self, and the will of the body. The body has a will. That's what I'm telling you. And so when I was watching this woman eat, her body was rejecting every bite. She was gagging and near vomiting with every bite. Her body did not have a will to be that big. And so you're about 28. Your body has a will to be sexually attractive. That's why every woman under the age of 28 has an OnlyFans or is dreaming of having an OnlyFans. If she's moderately attractive, she doesn't even need to be moderately attractive. All she has to do is be female. She'll find somebody. It was a joke during COVID that you could sell your feet to survive, and then a lot of people just didn't go back to work. Made so much money selling their feet. Fuck it, I'm selling my feet. And so a lot of people, I think I'm doing this out of that same impulse. Fuck it. No. Well, yeah, sort of, but no. Not the... There was a little bit of fuck it, I'm going after it during COVID, but it's too exhausting to do that with a full-time job. 40 hours a week, I was working 60 hours a week. That's too much to also try to write a novel and record it and make a following on Twitter and let them get close enough to believe that they're your friends. All of that's too much. I was talking about that with simplicity. And so the body has a will. The body has a will to live. You understand that. When I talk about your angel or your guardian or your daemon, I call it a demon because it's just easier to try to not to try to separate the words daemon and demon, spirit entity from malevolent entity, beneficial entity from malevolent entities. You have a benevolent entity in your body called the will of your body that wants to keep you alive, wants to keep you fit, wants to keep you healthy, wants to keep you injury and illness free, that tries desperately to heal your body when it's impossible for it to do so. That will do things like, if you've ever seen those videos, like I used to scroll Reddit for miracles because I wanted to bolster my faith while I was going through the worst of the supernatural kickback of being what I am now. And my favorite proof of what I'm talking about, the one that I always come to because it affected me the most profoundly, I suppose, at the time I was doing this, was a story about a father and small child, younger than 5, let's just say younger than 6, because it might have been 5. And it is the correct pronoun for a child under the age of 9, for the record. In English, the pronouns
don't differentiate between genders before the age of 9, and then again before 15. 16. This is very real in our language. So a child is an it until 9. So this child is under 6. It was hiking with his mom and his dad on a mountain. And for whatever reason, the kid fell down a precipice that was like 30 or 50 feet. Should have killed him. And dad just jumps, grabs his kid, catches him in his arms, is able to turn on his back, and lands softly on his back, both unharmed. You have an entity that wants you to live. We can call it the Moirai, we can call it the Fates. We used to talk about it's your time. Okay, that's your daemon. That's the will of your body. The will of your body has a will to live. Your brain has a will to live. Your brain has a will to be healthy. You probably have a will to self-destruction. And yeah, you get to watch me fart like a toddler, showing you what it is to be a child. In the spirit. And in the spirit means in your manner of action. So when you're not in attendance at a place, but they say you're with us in spirit, it means they're going to behave like you as though you were there. As though they're going to remind themselves of the things that you constantly remind them of, even though you're not there. That's what it is to be there in spirit. It means to be there in their minds, and that they're going to behave as though you're there. So you have this will of your mind. You have this will of the self. The will of the self is a will of destruction. It's a will of self-destruction. The self, until it is a child of man, has a will towards self-destruction. Small children are constantly trying to get themselves killed. If you've ever had a child under the age of 9, you know that their only impulse is to do things that will get them killed. Every time they make a static decision, it's something that's going to put them in serious danger. This is called practice. Practicing for life after 9, because if you make it to 9, most people didn't make it to 9 years old. That's why they're its. There's an amount of distance that you put between you and a small child because it's trying to die at all times. And then between 9 and 15, they're trying to figure out how to get themselves, if they're female, or someone else pregnant. That's what the will of the body becomes between 9 and 15. And the will of the mind between 9 and 15 is toward differentiation. Now, this isn't a son of man. This is just being alive. This is just called being human. Okay? This is called being a person. This is called being alive. I call it pre-human, non-human, unhuman, inhuman. We might call it barbarian. Okay? To be dominated by these two wills is a lesser way of life. It's the first stage of life. The second stage of life is called being a child of man. At the age of 15 in Greece, and this is based in, I'm going to be, because this was written in Greek and is translated from Greek, and most of this is by the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Christian period, so AD. Most of this is coming to us from Greek and not from the Hebrew traditions. Even among Jews are so influenced by Periclean Athens that everybody, even after they were long gone, is reading their work and trying to perfect their greatness. And so the deme system, the way that worked is the demes were, let's say, community blocks. I don't even know what they're called in cities. You know how city, like a district of the city, and each district is called a deme, and each deme is a house. Effectively, the way that houses were broad families. Okay, they were broad families, and a lot of those families were only family through marriage and really arcane and Byzantine, because let's use the word for that area of the world, right? Byzantine, arcane, eldritch, hard to understand. What's it called when adoption rules? Okay, so the deme is a district of the city that's effectively a big family, and that family is organized around trades guilds. So the way cities used to be built in the North America, where it's here's your factory district, here's your shopping district, here's your blank district, here's your rich people district, and then it kind of circled around like a big pie around the central area where all of the administration and government buildings were. This is how cities have always sprung up. Okay, this is just how civilization works, and we know that because the Greeks made the rules about it. And so that's the difference in East and West, right? Is the West is kind of more planned. In our minds, it's more planned in this way. That's why we're so surprised, and I keep talking about it, but that's why we're so surprised about Mohenjo-Daro. Like, wow, look how planned this was. Look how Western it looks. Yeah, okay, our idea of planning, city planning, and being broadly Western, all of that comes from the Indo-European the Indus River Valley civilization. We know that's true because there was archaeology recently done in the Ukraine that proves it, that they're old as shit, that they're much older than what we think of as far as city planning and civilization. And so civilization, by the time this is being written, understands that a child of God is someone who has gone through the initiation process of a trades guild. That's why Jesus is the son of a carpenter. That word carpenter in the languages Aramaic and Greek, I believe both languages, actually means a member of a trades guild, any trades guild. It just means not day laborer, but an extremely skilled and basically a Freemason. Okay, just think about it in terms of Freemasonry or Shriners, right? Just think about it like that. It's a gentleman's club, but not a strip club. Oftentimes that too. Oftentimes exactly that. Actually, it was a place where men could go to share their wives, effectively share their second and third and fifth wives, right? To get their daughters married off. It was a social connection between men in exactly the same way that what are those called? Let's just call it a secret society. It was a secret society, okay? It was a secret fucking society, but it wasn't religious. It was familial. But the family religion by the Periclean Athens, they talk about it a lot, that they didn't even understand it anymore, that it had all become abstracted and none of it made sense. The Romans, the entire time of after the Roman Republic, were confused about all their funerary rites and all of their gods of doorways and stuff. That's why, what am I saying? That's why, sorry, someone just texted me, and I'm trying not to be loud and conspicuous and annoying, but I do want to smoke while I talk about this, and I want to give that Brinks guy a few minutes to leave. And, sorry, someone's asking me dumb questions that are tripping me up. That's to be a child of man. That's what a son of man is to be initiated in a trades guild, to be initiated in any secret society. Because with those trades guilds came a certain amount of, like the Freemasons adopted, a certain amount of religion, a certain amount of spiritual training. To be a son of God is to undergo spiritual training in a series of cults. A series of cults. There was an ascending, just exactly like the OTO, just exactly like Freemasonry became. There was an ascending series of cults that you underwent, including Orphism, Prometheism, Persephonism, Pythagoreanism. These cults ascended you, and then once you had ascended all of those ranks, once you descended through all of those ranks, you were considered a son of God. Okay, you were now in your second life. That's called twice greatness. The thrice greatness of Hermes Trismegistus, I did this backward. The thrice greatness is experience of the throne of God. It's to do the time travel magic, or it's to attempt the time travel magic, or to be ritually preparing yourself for it. That ultimately happened at the end of, the narrative that we're discussing.